For question period, the Leader of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Premier. Premier, by 2017-2018, the government expects to squander over 10 cents of every revenue dollar collected by Queen's Park towards servicing your Liberal government's reckless and unaffordable debt. That's taxpayers' money that should be reinvested in frontline health care, first-rate education, reliable roads and transit. Instead of showing leadership and taking decisive action, you're going to force hardworking Ontarians to pay more for a decade of Liberal mismanagement. So, Premier, what taxes will you raise on Ontario's families in order to service that debt and balance the books?
Thank you. Premier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me just say that we've been very clear about the path to balance that we have laid out. We understand that it's extremely important that we continue to constrain increases on wages, Mr. Speaker. We understand, and we laid out clearly that we were going to be looking at the assets that are owned by the people of Ontario and making sure that they are working to the best advantage of the people of Ontario, and that's the work that Ed Clark and his Commission are doing, Mr. Speaker. But we also recognize that as the economic recovery takes hold, Mr. Speaker, it's extremely important that we make the investments that are necessary so that we can continue to create jobs and work with municipalities to make sure that that communities grow, because the economic well-being of communities across this province are part of the economic well-being of the province. So we have laid that all out in our budget, then in our platform, and then in our budget again, and that's the plan we're implementing, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, back to the Premier. Premier, because of your inability to stop spending and reverse course, Ontario has $500 million shortfall this year alone. Ontarians cannot afford any more money taken out of their pockets. They cannot afford new and higher taxes. On the issue of a carbon tax, your Environment Minister has said, quote, "It's time for all of us to start to get comfortable with two words, carbon tax. Without it, all those dreams of a green tomorrow are hallucinations," end of quote. So, Premier, straightforward question. Will you be introducing a carbon tax on hard-working Ontario families before 2018, yes or no?
Well, Mr. Speaker, what we are focused on is making sure that we do everything in our power to grow the economy, Mr. Speaker. We understand that balancing the books and making sure that the deficit is reduced by 2017-18 is very much a part of the task in front of us. But we also know that building on the success of creating over 500,000 net new jobs since the recession, Mr. Speaker, the lowest unemployment rate since the recession at 6.5%, Mr. Speaker. We recognize that building on those successes is what we have to do if we are going to be successful over the next decade. And the investments that we're talking about that will ease people's commutes, that will make sure that communities have the roads and bridges that they need, the hospitals and the schools, those contribute to a quality of life that is critical to the economic and the social well-being of the people in this province, Mr. Speaker.
Final supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it sounds like a yes to me.
I think so.
Premier Laurel Broughton, a former Ontario Liberal Environment Minister and Cabinet colleague of yours, is calling on the Nova Scotia government to introduce a carbon tax. Quebec implemented a carbon tax in 2007 and then became part of the Western Climate Initiative. In August 2014, you announced a strengthened relationship with Quebec on the issue of climate change. And your news release even quoted Premier Couillard as saying, "We are looking forward to recruiting new partners among our neighbours." Well, to be a partner, you have to have a carbon tax. So, Premier, do you plan on joining Quebec and imposing a carbon tax on Ontario families?
So, Mr. Speaker, here's what we're joining with Quebec on, and that is an acknowledgement that reducing greenhouse gas emissions and dealing with the effects of climate change is a challenge for every single one of us. And the member opposite is the first to jump up, Mr. Speaker, if there is a tornado or if there is a flood or if there is a demonstration, an indication of the impact of climate change. So, on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we believe that climate change is a reality that we have to deal with.
The member from Renfrew will come to order. Carry on, please.
The most important thing that has been done in this country in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions is the shutdown of coal-fired plants in Ontario, Mr. Speaker. So, are we going Are we going to continue to do everything in our power to guarantee that there is a world for our children in the future, Mr. Speaker? Absolutely.